The last time he hit me, my tooth got lodged in the floorboard. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and that made it better for him. His boot had slammed into the side of my face, and I remember the crunch, not just the sound of bone, but of wood. I was 8, lying sideways on the living room floor, my mouth tasting like pennies and sweat. The broken necklace was under the couch, snapped hours ago when I dared to pick up the mail before he got home. He'd told me to leave it. He wanted to feel in control even of the envelopes. There were 3 empty beer bottles on the coffee table, and the 4th one hit the wall behind me. I didn't flinch anymore when things shattered. He used to aim better when I cried. Now I made sure not to. I remember the way he huffed like I'd forced him to do it, as if I'd ruined his evening by existing too loudly. And then he walked off, leaving me there curled like a kicked animal with one hand on my face and the other stretched under the couch looking for the tiny silver chain that had my name on it. It was bent, the E was missing. I heard him laugh from the kitchen, then the fridge slammed. My mother didn't say anything. I don't think she was even in the house anymore, not really. Not since I was 5. That night I swallowed the tooth. I didn't cry, I didn't talk, I didn't eat for 2 days, and no one noticed. When you grow up in a house like that, your body doesn't belong to you. It belongs to his moods, to his fists, to whatever cracked world he lived in. You learn early how to shrink. You learn silence like a second language. And then one day, years later, you learn how to speak again, but only in a courtroom when you've sharpened your voice into something surgical. That's what I did. I learned to cut with my words. I remember the first feeling that no one believed me. It wasn't blood or bruises. It was my voice cracking like a bad radio signal, trying to explain to my teacher why I flinched when she touched my shoulder. I was 6. I'd knocked over a cup of water on the art table, and the substitute teacher had grabbed my wrist without thinking. My whole body tensed, my chair clattered behind me, and the whole class stared. Later, she asked if everything was okay at home. I nodded too fast, smiled too hard. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. That smile hurt more than anything my father had ever done, because I knew what would happen if she made a call. And she did. I found out later that she called the house that night. I remember the way my father stood at the foot of my bed afterward, his shadow slicing through the glow of my nightlight. He didn't yell, he didn't move. He just watched me breathe, smiling like he was waiting. And the next morning, my name was spelled wrong on the attendance sheet. The school never asked again. People say kids don't remember much at that age. They're wrong. I remember the color of that spilled paint, bright green like the grass I wasn't allowed to lie in. I remember my knees shaking even though I was sitting down. I remember holding the broken popsicle stick that was supposed to be part of a birdhouse. And I remember knowing, not guessing, not wondering, but knowing that no one would come for me. That was the real break. Not the bruises, not the punishments. The silence. The heavy thudding silence of adults choosing not to see. I kept that memory inside me like a stone in my pocket. I would run my fingers across it during the bad nights when the belt snapped, when the floor creaked, when the beer cans started piling up. It was smooth and sharp at the same time, like something half swallowed. It told me what I was worth, and it told me that if I ever wanted to get out, I'd have to be the one to open the door. The whole neighborhood thought I was a lucky kid they didn't live in my house. From the outside, it looked like a postcard, white porch swing, a flag fluttering off the mailbox. My father even mowed the lawn in straight lines like a soldier. On Sundays, he'd wave to the neighbors, tip his hat offer to fix a gutter or lend a power drill. People loved him. Good man, they'd say, keeps to himself but solid. They didn't hear what the walls heard. My mother used to be pretty. That's what people said in the church directory. She smiled with her mouth closed and wore long sleeves even in summer. She stopped speaking in complete sentences after I turned 4. Her voice faded like wallpaper, left too long in the sun, still there but barely. I think she knew. She just stopped having the energy to stop him. She was never the one to raise a hand, but her silence made a nest for his rage. She folded towels while I cried. She vacuumed while I bled. She poured his whiskey with fingers that didn't tremble anymore. He, on the other hand, was fire, a big man with too much noise in him. His job was at the local grain company, foreman, veteran, old-school discipline, no nonsense. That was what the town knew. That's what they respected. They didn't see him on the nights he came home and slammed the door so hard the pictures fell. They didn't see what he did to the pictures of me. He had this rule: no noise after 9 p.m. Even if the floor creaked, I paid for it. If the TV volume jumped too high, I paid for it. Once I sneezed during a storm. He made me sleep outside in the shed for waking the damn dead. And when people asked how things were at home, I lied, like I breathed. There were no siblings. Just me. Just me and a necklace I wore under my shirt, a silver thing with my name on it, a gift from my grandmother before she passed. He hated it. Said it made me look soft. Said I didn't need anything that had my name on it because your name don't mean shit if you don't earn it. That necklace snapped for the first time when I was 7. I kept all the pieces in a matchbox. I used to think maybe one day I'd put it back together. Later, I'd realize some things aren't meant to be fixed. Some names you rebuild on your own. From ash, from quiet rage, from the sound of law books closing like a gavel over a life no one saw coming. I lived by animal instincts, not human. I could tell what kind of night it was going to be by the way the front door closed. If it was a slam, I had maybe 5 minutes. If it creaked, I had 10 minutes to make sure everything was clean, the lights were off, the dishes dried without a single water spot. 10 minutes to disappear into the cracks of the house like a mouse, silent, small, unseen. Breathing became something I did carefully, like it might set something off. I taught myself how to walk without sound. I knew which floorboards moaned and which ones held their breath. My body became a map of bruises I stopped trying to explain. Fell off my bike, I'd say. Ran into the door, I'd laugh. No one asked more than once. At school, I was the quiet one. I did my homework, kept my head down, got good grades because the moment I failed at something, it would follow me home. I was terrified of mistakes. I once ripped a test trying to erase too hard and burst into tears in the bathroom thinking he'd somehow find out. I remember one time I got a nosebleed in gym. The coach offered to call home. I shook my head so fast it made the bleeding worse. I said I was fine, always fine. I was always fine. The truth was, I'd stopped being a child by the time I was 9. I was survival wrapped in a too small body. I knew how to make myself invisible, how to smooth my face into something expressionless, how to endure a slap without crying. That was important, not crying. It gave him satisfaction. But at night in the dark, I would whisper things to myself, not prayers, not dreams. Instructions. Don't answer back. Don't drop the plate. Don't make him repeat himself. And sometimes when I was feeling brave, I'd whisper things like, one day you'll be gone. Not rescued, not saved. Gone. On my own. I'd close my eyes and imagine a house with no footsteps, no yelling, no beer cans. Just silence, and a lock on the door that was mine. I didn't know then how long that would take, or what I'd have to become to get there. But I held on to that picture like a life raft floating above the wreck of my childhood. Even animals, when caged long enough, learn the shape of freedom by smell. I was learning. I thought I was dead, and I was relieved about it. It was late July. The air was heavy, thick with mosquitoes and the stink of his sweat. He'd been laid off for a week and was drinking harder than usual, yelling at things that weren't there, slamming his fists into the kitchen cabinets like they'd insulted him. I had broken a lamp. I hadn't meant to. I was dusting carefully like always, and my elbow tapped the edge. It hit the floor in a million pieces, the glass like ice scattered across the carpet. He didn't say anything for a moment. That was the worst part. Silence. Then his hands were on my arm. His grip was like fire, and he dragged me through the house muttering things I couldn't understand. I was trying not to cry, trying to say I was sorry, but my voice didn't work. He threw me into the closet in the hallway, the one with the old blankets and tools, and slammed it shut. I heard the lock, then I heard the stereo turn up. Old country music, loud enough to drown anything out. Then the door to the porch slammed, and he was gone. He left me there. For hours. No food, no water, no light. Just the smell of dust and mildew and a forgotten bottle of bleach. I tried to count the time by the change in the air, but I kept falling in and out of sleep, shaking from heat and fear and the weight of something pressing against my chest. I wet myself at some point. I remember that. And I remember thinking, this is it. He'll come back and forget I'm here. And I'll die, and he won't even remember to open the door. And for a minute, just a minute, I was okay with that. Because dying felt like an end, and endings felt like something I could want. But he did come back. He opened the door the next morning like nothing had happened, told me to clean myself up, called me disgusting, said I should be ashamed of the mess I made. I limped to the bathroom, the broken necklace still in my pocket, the chain digging into my leg like a reminder that I was still real, still breathing, still here. And something changed that day. Something hard inside me turned cold. Not broken, no breaking is soft. This was different. I started to smile when he hit me, not to mock, not to provoke, just to confuse him. I stopped reacting. I let him scream himself hoarse and walked away when he was done. I learned to stare at him without blinking. He didn't like that. He started getting nervous around me, started locking his own door at night. And deep down, I think he knew. The girl he hit wasn't there anymore. I was already becoming someone else. I disappeared at 3 a.m. They didn't notice until the afternoon. It was summer again, the same heat clinging to the walls like sweat, but this time I wasn't scared of it. I'd been planning it for months. I had saved every dime from tutoring after school, selling old textbooks, doing homework for other kids. I'd made a fake school trip permission slip, told my father I'd be out early the next morning. He grunted, didn't look up from his drink. That night, I packed only what mattered, a change of clothes, the shattered necklace pieces in the matchbox, a copy of my birth certificate I'd stolen from the drawer, and the acceptance letter to a college 3 states away. No suitcase, just a backpack. At 2:45, I sat on the edge of my bed, my heart thudding like a drum in a locked room. I waited, counted breaths, rehearsed every step. At 3 a.m., I opened the door so slowly it barely whispered. The floorboard near the bathroom still creaked. I skipped it. My shoes were already outside. I left the keys on the kitchen table. No note, no apology. I walked 3 miles in the dark to the bus station, watched the sunrise from a plastic bench that smelled like cigarettes and mold. I remember thinking how unreal it all felt, like I was watching someone else's escape. But it was mine. When the bus pulled away, I looked back once. No lights on in the house. Just a porch swing swaying slightly, like maybe the night had stirred it. It took 6 hours to reach the first city, another 5 to get to the campus. I had no dorm yet, no room, just a promise from the admissions office and a scholarship based on the essay I wrote about justice. They thought it was fiction. It wasn't. I found a couch to sleep on, a meal plan I could barely afford. I got 2 jobs. I never told anyone my real story, not at first. When people asked about my parents, I smiled and said, we lost touch. They didn't ask again. I didn't cry when I left. I didn't cry for years after. I'd spent all my tears by age 12. Instead, I read. I memorized legal codes the way I once memorized his habits. I studied precedent the way I used to study the floorboards. I was becoming fluent in power. And slowly I realized I wasn't running anymore. I was hunting. I have a degree, a house, a reputation, but every night I dream about ropes. They're not always visible. Sometimes it's just the feeling that my wrists are caught, that my breath won't come, that somewhere nearby someone is watching and I can't see their face. I wake up gasping. Most nights I stay awake afterward. I read court opinions in bed, make tea. I never finish open windows just to prove I can. There's always a suitcase half packed in my closet, just in case. It's not fear, it's instinct. People think I'm composed, driven. Some call me intimidating. They don't see the way my fingers twitch when someone raises their voice in the office. They don't know that I haven't been able to keep a relationship longer than a few months because the sound of a slammed door even accidentally makes my whole body freeze. I'm high functioning, they'd say. I pay my taxes early, I show up 15 minutes ahead, I mentor young lawyers, I volunteer. But I haven't worn jewelry in years. Not since I found that necklace again while unpacking a box from college. It was still in the matchbox. The chain had rusted in one spot where blood once touched it. I ran my thumb over the engraved my name, and it felt like a lie. I keep it now in my desk drawer at work wrapped in tissue. Not because I want to remember. Because I want to be ready. Ready for the day I see his name again. Ready for when the past dares to resurface, not as a nightmare but as paperwork, property, a company, a case. And when it came, I recognized it immediately. The grain company, a civil lawsuit, labor violations, unsafe conditions. The client was young, injured, scared, and ready to fight. She had no idea the man who owned it was my father. But I did, and I took the case with a smile so calm it scared me. I've spent my life building walls high enough that even memory couldn't scale them. But this wasn't memory. This was opportunity. This was my turn. I didn't tell anyone why I fought so hard in that courtroom. Why I filed motions so fast it rattled the defense. Why I dissected his financials like a surgeon with a grudge. They said I was brilliant, efficient, ruthless. But I wasn't trying to win just for her. I was setting fire to the house I'd once escaped brick by brick from the outside in. I smile, but inside I count every time they hit me. It's easy now, the smile. I've practiced it for years. In meetings, in courtrooms, in front of judges and adversaries and cameras. It stretches across my face like polished glass, unbreakable, unreadable. The first time I saw him again, it was accidental. I was visiting a local official to gather evidence. He was coming out of the building slower, now puffier, around the face, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit. Age had softened his features, but not his eyes. They were still cruel, still empty. He didn't recognize me. He looked right at me and nodded like I was another one of those women he never bothered to know. And I smiled wide, warm, professional, while inside I was burning. I didn't speak to him, not yet. But I traced his footsteps. I watched his habits, not in a stalker's way, in a lawyer's way. I pulled records, found the tax filings, the OSHA violations, the mistreated employees. I built the story the way he had once built his beatings, quietly, thoroughly, with the belief no one would stop me. He never saw my name on the paperwork. He didn't know I was the one behind the case until the day of deposition. When I walked into the room and his lawyer stood to introduce opposing counsel me, his face went pale. He said my name out loud, and I nodded. That was all. No revenge speech, no tears, just silence, cold and deliberate. I watched him shift in his chair, watched his hand tremble slightly as he reached for water he didn't drink. He tried to smile. "You look different." I didn't answer. I opened my folder, began the questioning. My tone never changed, my voice never shook. But in my head I was counting. 1 for the time he broke my rib. 2 for the night in the closet. 3 for every skipped birthday, every ignored cry, every moment I begged without sound. By the time I finished, his answers were a mess of contradictions and silence. His company began to unravel from the inside. Workers came forward, inspections followed, fines, lawsuits. I didn't have to lift a finger outside that room. He built his own destruction. I just held up a mirror. Afterward, I passed him once more in the hallway. He was leaning on the wall, sweating. He looked at me like a man who'd seen a ghost. But I wasn't a ghost. I was very much alive. And more dangerous than anything he'd ever raised a hand to. I don't need to scream. They just need to be afraid of my eyes. The trial was never televised. Civil suits rarely are. But the town still talked. They whispered at diners, in barbershops, behind closed doors, at the church where he used to sit in the front pew. His name began appearing in places it never had before. Local news, legal bulletins, social media posts that didn't use polite words anymore. The company folded 6 months after the verdict. Not because of me, technically, but the lawsuit opened the door, investigators walked through, auditors followed, and the dominoes fell just the way I planned, slowly, loudly, publicly. He lost his pension, his house, his standing. Even the local veterans group removed his name from their plaque. And through it all, I never raised my voice, never posted, never gloated. I just let the law do what he thought it never could, hold him accountable. There's something intimate about legal ruin. It's cleaner than violence. It doesn't bruise, it dismembers. At the end of it, I sent him a letter. Just a plain envelope, no return address. Inside a photograph. Me, age 8, holding the broken necklace. No note, no threat. Just a memory he'd tried to erase, now framed by my control. 2 weeks later, his lawyer reached out, said he wanted to settle, to make peace, to talk. I declined. Let him sit with the silence. Let him stew in the fear that I'm still watching, still waiting. Let him feel, even for a moment, the powerlessness he once wrapped around my throat like a collar. Because I am not the scared child he left behind. I am the echo of every bruise he forgot, the shadow of every word he barked, the shape of justice he never believed would have a face. And now that face looks just like mine. He doesn't sleep well, I hear, won't answer unknown calls, crosses the street when young women walk by in suits. He's afraid of women now. Good. He should be. I don't need anyone to admit their mistakes. I just need them to live the way I used to live, looking over their shoulder, waiting for the next blow, unsure of where it's coming from or if it already happened and they just haven't bled yet. He still lives in the same town, smaller now in every way, doesn't drive much, keeps the blinds closed, probably still drinks. That's the one thing that's never changed. Men like him don't dry out, they just decay slower. People cross the street when they see him. Some out of discomfort, others out of something closer to disgust. No one waves anymore. He used to be someone the town nodded to. Now they don't even say his name. That's the part he never understood. You can beat a child into silence, but you can't beat time. Time remembers what fists try to erase. And time found me. I don't go back. Not for holidays, not for reunions, not for nostalgia. That place was never home. It was a battleground dressed in siding and wallpaper. The porch swing rotted long ago. The lawn grows wild. But sometimes I drive near it, not close, just enough to see the outline in the distance. I don't feel fear anymore. I don't feel anything. Some people ask if I ever got closure. If this, the lawsuit, the destruction, the downfall made me feel whole again. And I tell them the truth. There's no wholeness when you grow up in a war zone. There's just the quiet after the bombing. The kind where your ears ring and your hands shake and you don't realize until later that you survived. But survival is not healing. It's not forgiveness. It's not forgetting. It's a kind of becoming. A becoming so sharp, so exact, that no one recognizes the girl in the pictures anymore, not even me. I wear suits now. I win cases. I mentor girls who flinch too much and smile too little. I teach them how to walk into a room like they own it, not because they want to, but because they've earned it in blood and bone. And at night when I lock my front door and feel the click echo in my chest like a heartbeat, I let myself breathe. Just once. Because this silence is mine.